Today, we're diving into one of the biggest turning points in all of history, the moment the Roman Republic died. But here's the twist. This isn't really a story about armies and battles. Nope, it's the story of a name, just a single word that managed to tear down a 500-year-old system of government and launch an empire.
I know, it sounds kind of crazy, right? How could a simple name change possibly hold that much power? Well, what we're about to see is that in ancient Rome, a name was never, ever, just a name. It was a statement. It was a claim to a legacy. And in the right hands, it was a political weapon, powerful enough to literally reshape the world.
All right, so let's meet the main character in our story. He's one of the most famous people in history, but you've probably heard him called a few different things. And believe me, that was no accident. Each one of his names was a very deliberate, very calculated step on his journey to becoming Rome's very first emperor.
So look at this. This isn't just a list of names, it's basically a roadmap of pure ambition. From his birth name, Gaius Octavius Thurinus, all the way to the legendary title of Augustus. Every single change marks a huge step up for him personally. But more importantly, it tracks Rome's own dramatic transformation from a republic into an empire.
Now, to really get why these name changes were so effective, you have to understand the world he was living in. Rome was in a really weird and, frankly, violent spot. On the one hand, they were the undisputed superpower of their time. But on the other hand, the Republic was tearing itself to pieces from the inside out, with one brutal civil war after another.
Yeah, this timeline really shows you just how shaky that power was. You know, back in 202 BCE, Rome is on top of the world, the undisputed master of the Mediterranean. But fast forward a bit, and all that success has basically poisoned its politics. And then comes the big one, the moment that shatters everything. 44 BCE, the assassination of Julius Caesar. Chaos. The Republic is thrown into total disarray, which creates this massive power vacuum that our guy is perfectly positioned to fill, setting the whole stage for what happens in 27 BCE.
So how did he do it? In the middle of all that chaos, how did this one guy rise all the way to the top? Well, his strategy wasn't just about winning battles. It was a masterclass in political branding. The first three names he used were these incredibly deliberate, super calculated moves to build a power base basically from scratch.
His rebranding was this brilliant three-step process. Okay, so first, he's born Gaius Octavius. Comes from a decent family, but they're not, the top-tier elite. He's a relative nobody. Then everything changes. Julius Caesar is murdered, and it turns out his will posthumously adopts this teenager. And by immediately taking the name Gaius Julius Caesar, he pulls off a political miracle. See, for Caesar's loyal soldiers and for the people of Rome, that name was pure magic. It meant power, loyalty, a connection to the gods. It was like he instantly inherited this massive legacy. The third name, Octavianus, was just a clever final touch. It was a formal nod to his birth family that also legally cemented his brand new, almost royal status as Caesar's official heir.
So, after years of brutal civil war, he's the last man standing. He has all the power, he's got the armies, but there's one huge problem. He can't call himself a king. Romans absolutely despise that word. So he needed something totally new, something that sounded traditional, but was actually something radically different. And this leads us to his final and most important transformation.
Just picture it for a second. The year is 27 BCE. The horrible civil wars that ripped Rome apart for years are finally over. There's peace, but you can bet everyone is holding their breath. What's next? Do they try to restore the Republic? Or is one man now going to rule them all? The Senate has a massive decision to make.
What the Senate came up with was, frankly, a stroke of genius. They couldn't make him a king, but they had to acknowledge his absolute power. So they invented a brand new title, just for him, Augustus. It was a word that was just dripping with religious authority. It meant something like revered one or majestic. It lifted him above all other normal people without ever using the hated language of monarchy. And this move was so perfect that it became the official title for every single Roman emperor that came after him.
And this, right here, this captures the whole shift perfectly. As Octavian, he was a man, a brilliant and ruthless politician, but he was still playing the game of the Republic. But as Augustus, he became an institution. He was no longer just a player in the game. He was the game. The title itself became the embodiment of this new kind of imperial power.
Okay, so let's tie all these threads together. This wasn't just some guy getting a new nickname.
This single act, the Senate giving him this unique title, this is the moment that historians point to as the day the Republic symbolically died.
That title, Augustus, was effectively the birth certificate for the Roman Empire. By accepting it, he created a whole new political system called the Principate, and you can think of it as, well, like a quiet dictatorship with a friendly public face. One man held all the real power, but all the old institutions of the Republic, the Senate, the consuls, they were all kept in place to keep up the illusion that nothing had really changed. It was a revolution hidden inside a single, respectable-sounding name.
So what's the big takeaway here?
The story of Augustus is just this incredibly powerful reminder that symbols and titles, they matter a lot. And it leaves us with a really interesting question to think about, not just for ancient Rome, but for today too. When we see leaders adopt new titles or change the language of power, are they just changing a name, or are they fundamentally changing the rules of a game?